Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here. Hello, everyone. How you all doing? I hope you're all doing well. It is Tuesday, guys, which means it's time for another Snowflake's Corner, but this one is an American special. I'm getting the feeling I'm going to have to do an American live stream on a weekly basis, given the amount of content that keeps coming out of America, guys. This is an American special, which means I may do a live stream on Friday. That depends. But if people want me to do one, well, there is an option for people to do one if they need be. But this is going to be the Snowflake's Corner episode 58, an American special, or America special. Here on the 4th of February 2025 at 6 p.m. UK time, we are dual streaming live on twitch.tv/ReganElite1. So if you are watching on Twitch, do hit that follow button and hit the bell notification icon so you'll be notified of when I go live. And on youtube.com/ReganElite. So if you're on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like button, share across social media, and subscribe as well. We got a lot of Donald Trump to talk about, of course. Billy Kershaw, good to see you there. Hope you're doing well. QA Library as well, and Mad Monk 33 as well. Good to see you all. Hope you're all doing well. I might hit, this might be more than an hour and a half. We'll have to wait and we'll have to see, guys, because there's a lot to talk about, and I got a very interesting video I got for you guys that Al Jazeera produced a very interesting video that I'm going to share with you guys, and I really think it's worth. Especially when, as someone who doesn't fully understand tariffs, after watching this, I have much better understanding of tariffs, and I figured, yeah, I'm going to share it with you guys because I think it's worth understanding of why some people back tariffs, why people back Trump a little bit more, and the understanding surrounding it. It's a very good explanation deal, and we're going to start with the article that it is on first and foremost. So the headline is Donald Trump's trade tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China explain visually. Mexico, Canada, and China account for more than 40% of total food traded with the United States. Now, it's important to emphasize, of course, that we know that Trump, Canada, and Mexico have all kind of backed off, and they've given 30 days. Trump's kind of backed down, and there's been a sort out on this. So I do want to stress that as well when it comes to talking about these total tariffs. But obviously, the trade tariffs, as far as I'm aware, on China have gone ahead, and China has retaliated with their own as well. I can't remember if I've actually got that specific topic there. No, I've got quite a few topics on them. So. Before I read into this and before I go into the video, right? Here's the thing I want to say. Cathal, good to see you there, buddy. Hope you're doing well. It's important to try to understand why does Trump believe in tariffs? Well, the concept and the premise is that it would be better for UK consumers, UK customers, UK businesses. US businesses references all US businesses. That if you have a business in America, if you have products that are all made in the USA, and if they don't require anything from outside the USA and they're sold in the USA, this does not affect you. However, if you, like, for instance, acquire components from outside the US, this will affect you. If your business relies on bringing in things outside of America, this affects you as well. In order to make your products or sell a certain product, that affects you. If you're a US business outside a US business outside the United States, this will affect you as well. So my head around this, and we will come to the video in a bit, but my head around this is that he is trying to force, and this is the problem, he's trying to force US businesses to stop doing any kind of work with people outside the US bubble, basically. To try and stop relying on foreign components, foreign business, foreign whatnot, and focus mainly in the US. Focus on American jobs, focus on American factories, focus everything around America. The whole premise and the whole concept is America first, right? And that's where I think this is where these trade tariffs come in. So I'm going to read. Let's read a bit more into this anyway as we go along. So the United States has postponed a planned 25% tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports by a month, following an 11-hour call between President Donald Trump and leaders from Canada and Mexico on Monday. So the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum agreed to boost border security to prevent the trafficking of drug and migrants into the US, averting a trade war for now. It should be very, very clear that nothing has actually changed. It's the same agreements that they had with previously, but they're just basically saying what they need to say in order to appease Trump. But the 10% tariffs on Chinese goods took effect on Tuesday, attracting retaliatory measures from Beijing. Chinese goods have already been subject to previous tariffs starting in Trump's first term between 2017 and 2021. The tariff war by the US, the second largest goods trade in the world after China, has rattled markets worldwide. And from January to November 2024, the value of goods traded between the US and the world reached $4.88 trillion, with $2.9 trillion in exports and $1.9 trillion in imports. The United States' top trading partners, Mexico, Canada, and China, account for more than 40% of the total goods traded, valued at more than $2 trillion. That is a lot of money. And you can see it here. This is from the sources from census.gov. This is the top trading partners of the United States. From January to November 2024, the value of goods traded between the US and the world reached $4.8 trillion, with $2.98 trillion in exports in $1.9 trillion in imports there. So you can see there in terms for the US, the highest numbers. So you have exports, imports, and trade deal. You can see Mexico, Canada, and China, the top three on there, and then followed by Germany, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, Vietnam, and United Kingdom gets a fair is in the top 10 there, as well as is India there. Yeah, you got some of the other outside the top 10 there: Italy, France, Ireland, and Brazil there. But yeah, the UK is still in the top 10 as of from January to November 2024 there. So we still have trading goods going in lots of that still from the UK's perspective there. So I think that's a very good reading there. So what are tariffs and how do they work? Well, I think so I'll read this actually, and then we'll go into the video. So a tariff is a government-imposed tax on imported goods and services paid by businesses to bring them into the country, designed to protect domestic industries. Tariffs often drive up costs for consumers and making foreign products more expensive, potentially reducing damage. A tariff is a tax imposed by one country's government on goods and services from a foreign country, making them more expensive and encouraging local purchases. So, for example, a Chinese exporter sells a pair of jeans to the US importer to $10. The US government imposes a 10% tariff on Chinese products. The US importer will now have to pay $1 extra to the federal government for the jeans, increasing its cost to $11. After adding expensive and profits, the jeans will be sold for $20. A US consumer will most likely pay more for the jeans. In some cases, the exporter absorbs the tariff by lowering the price, or the US business reduces their profit margins to keep retail price stable. And this is an example from the Tax Foundation there. So, as we just read there, so yeah, the consumer will likely pay more for the jeans. So what does the pause on tariff mean for Canada and Mexico? Following talks with Trump, Mexican President Sheinbaum and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau both made commitments to bolster security at their shared borders with the US. I spoke with President Claudia Sheinbaum of Mexico. It was a very friendly conversation where she agreed to immediately supply 10,000 Mexican soldiers on the border separating Mexico and the United States. Trump wrote on social media on Monday. I want to point this out here because I actually checked this up. Apparently, this was agreed by President Biden and Mexico before. So this was already in agreement. So Trump's there just making it look like it's a big victory. Joe, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. So yeah. Following his call with Trump, Trudeau announced that Canada would move forward with its previous outlined $1.3 billion border plan, while also committing to appointing a fentanyl Caesar and officially designated cartels as terrorist organizations. The fentanyl thing is the amount of it that goes from Canada into the US is apparently 0.02% apparently. So yeah, that's really a big priority there. Fundamentally, it's very good news that tariffs have been paused and Canada needs to do everything possible to engage with Trump, work on border security issues, etc. Vindhya Nabarida, Vice President, Research and Strategy at the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada, had told Al Jazeera. But beyond the immediate crisis, we need to work on structural issues that led to this overdependence on the US. We need to build capacity to export, to place others and the US in investor and competitors, Nabarita added. No tariff has been used by several countries before. Historically, in the US, from 1790 to 1860, tariffs produced 90% of federal revenues. Tariffs can also be used to punish foreign producers of goods and are not abided by international trade partners. In 2018, the US began placing tariffs on Chinese goods worth hundreds of billions, cutting unfair trade practices and intellectual property theft. This marked the start of the US-China trade war, where items such as semiconductors, batteries, and electronics, such as washing machines, were taxed. And in that same year, Trump introduced a 25% levy on steel and 10% tariff on aluminum, affecting a number of countries, including Canada, Mexico, India, Brazil, and Argentina. So, let's have a listen then. I will pause it during a couple of ways. This is a great video by Al Jazeera on it.
Let's talk about Donald Trump and his favorite word, tariffs.
The most beautiful word in the entire dictionary.
It's more beautiful than love.
I have stopped wars
I don't know about that, but okay.
with tariffs.
Trump announced that he would slap major new tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China.
These are America's 3 biggest trading partners he's going after. With a 25% tariff,
This plan will
Inflation just
before we get into all of that, here's why you and I should care about tariffs. They're part of how global trade works, and so much of the stuff we consume and the price we pay for it depends on this complicated, intertwined system that involves buying and selling between different countries. And a change in one part of the system can create big ripple effects, especially when the change comes from a major economy like the US.
This is actually, if you actually, when you break it down and simplify it like she just did there, it makes so much sense in the world, because it is true. Every knock-on effect that happens from one economy can have a ripple effect on the global economy. I mean, a prime example that I think about is what happened within the Suez Canal, with what happened with the Houthi rebels stopping and disrupting trade along that canal, because of what happened, what was happening in Gaza. Technically they are still causing some disruption, but when they started really clamping down on ships, the Houthi rebels in Yemen, that had a knock-on effect on global trade, because it meant that those ships that would normally go through the canal there, through the Mediterranean into Europe, coming from markets such as Asia, India, Australia, etc., they couldn't do that because their ships were at risk. So it cost them more, and it had a major effect because they would have to go all the way around Africa because it wouldn't be safe. That had a massive effect. So that's just another example of when I think about it. Daily Blase, good to see you there, my friend.
Tariffs are essentially a tax on stuff that's imported. So let's say there's a US company that sells jeans, and it buys them from a company in China for $10 each. Now, if the US government introduces a 10% tariff on clothing from China, it means that for every pair of jeans the US company imports, it has to pay a $1 tax to the US government.
Many Americans think that foreign governments pay the tariffs instead of people here in the United States.
Tariffs have been used by countries as long as there have been countries that have had governments capable of taxing anything, because goods crossing the border are the easiest thing to tax because you can see them.
So tariffs have actually been around for a long time, hundreds of years. But over the last few decades, a lot of countries have kept them pretty low by historical standards. There's been this widely accepted idea, driven mostly by Western countries, that importing stuff with low tariffs or none at all helps make all countries better off. That's the idea behind free trade.
We remain.
And it's true. When you think about, like, if everyone does, like, what this, when you think about if everybody does well, if all nations are trading more freely, more openly, everybody is working together sort of thing, then everyone kind of shoulders everyone's burdens when it comes to trade, when it comes to all their different economies and whatnot. Whereas before, obviously, this idea, and it's just said the word there that you're going to hear, of protectionism, whereas you're shielding yourself from the rest of the world, and prime example of that. When you think of a country that shields itself, what is a country that you think of, guys, that shields itself more than anyone in the entire world? It's North Korea, doesn't it? They are more shielded from the world than anyone else, aren't they? You know, everything that North Korea does is all inside North Korea. Like, if the global markets, if the finances crash and whatnot, do you think that would have a major effect on North Korea? No, it has a very little effect on North Korea, because a lot of things that North Korea does, it's done inside it. Yes, they do have trade deals and arrangements with China, and that would have an effect on North Korea, but everything that North Korea does is inside North Korea. It's all done inside North Korea. And that's just another, I thought that's an interesting example when you think about protectionism, because that's kind of what North Korea is. When you think about what other country would you consider close to that? Simon, good to see you there, buddy.
Remain opposed as ever to protectionism because America's growth and future depend on trade.
We must go to more open and free trade.
Fuck off, Margaret Thatcher.
Because protectionism isn't really good for anyone.
We must continue the fight to lower foreign trade barriers, which slow economic growth here in the United States and around the world.
As free trade expands across the earth, the realm of human freedom expands with it.
The understanding of economists like myself is that the world benefits by not taxing trade, that we get more efficient things, we get cheaper things. It's just, it helps the world economy tremendously.
So if a lot of economists think free trade is more efficient, why would governments use tariffs? Well, here are three main reasons: to bring in money, to protect domestic industries, and in turn protect and create jobs, or as a political tool, to appeal to voters at home, or to put pressure on other countries, sometimes on issues that have nothing to do with trade.
And I think, yeah, everybody's looking at the political tool run more than anything there. But the more you read into this video and you think about the raise money prospects, it does really open my eyes to a lot of things. And the domestic industry, you know, the whole premise of Donald Trump has always been about America first, America first, America first. So when we say that tariffs are an insane idea, to some, it's actually a good thing. And the price and the cost of tariffs to some Americans is actually worth it when you listen more as we dive more into this video.
And we've seen Donald Trump refer to all these reasons to justify his tariff plans. He said money from new tariffs could help offset cuts to other taxes, like income tax. It's a model he says worked well in the past, although he's going back more than 100 years.
Our country's vast manufacturing wealth was created at a time with very little domestic taxation, few regulations, and most revenue came from tariffs from other countries.
Did you just float out the idea of getting rid of income taxes and replacing it with tariffs?
Well, okay.
Were you serious about that?
Yeah, sure, but why not?
But remember, the money that flows to the government when tariffs are in place isn't free money. Someone has to pay for it. In our jeans example earlier, we said it's the importer that pays the tariff to the government. That's true technically, but who ultimately pays is a more complicated question. Here are a couple of scenarios. If the jeans company has to pay an extra $1 on every pair of jeans, they might just raise the price for the customer. So a $20 pair of jeans is now $21, pushing the cost of the tariff onto consumers.
Now this is where I think the biggest problem with Trump's idea is here. Because obviously I understand, because after watching this video in full, I understand more why Trump is doing this. Of course, I see the chaos on the side of it, and I know a lot of people will say that in the comments. Number 3, good to see you, buddy, on this. But there is that risk that you are increasing prices on products domestically here, as you're increasing prices on things coming from abroad. But he's trying to, the way I see this is that he's trying to force businesses to stop relying on foreign stuff here. But it doesn't always necessarily mean that every single tariff that he imposes, every single product that could be that could get these tariffs, it doesn't necessarily mean that every single business, every single consumer is going to directly put it on the customer. It doesn't always mean that. it's likely that that's what it will be, but it doesn't always necessarily mean that.
But more expensive jeans means the US company will probably sell fewer pairs, and therefore it'll buy fewer from the Chinese supplier. In another scenario, the US company could take the hit themselves. But there are other knock-on effects there too.
If they're not going to pass them on, those costs on to consumers, they can invest less in their domestic operations. They can hire fewer Americans. They can pay out less to their shareholders. And so, just like a corporate tax, at the end of the day, these companies aren't just simply taking the tariff costs. Someone in the United States, workers, investors, or consumers will end up paying.
And that's important to keep in mind when we look at the next reason why Trump's into tariffs. The idea that they can protect and boost domestic industries and create jobs. During the election campaign, Trump said he would introduce a 60% tariff on all goods from China and a blanket 10 to 20% on all other imports to the US. The theory is, if tariffs make it more expensive to import stuff, then there's more incentive for companies to make those products at home, which means investing in factories and workers.
And make the United States into a manufacturing powerhouse like it used to be many years ago.
But is it that straightforward? Well, that's debatable.
I think it is way too simplistic to say, put in place a tariff, get jobs. Isn't that wonderful? I don't think it works that smoothly. Building manufacturing is a long-term process and a big investment. And no one knows if the tariffs are political, if they're going to last.
And even if a tariff does help to create jobs in certain industries, they can lead to big extra costs for other parts of the economy.
What I really think he's trying to do is trying to reshift the way that America creates basically money, the way that America runs itself as an economy, to shift it all. He wants to. I think the long-term goal of what this Trump administration wants to do, whether I agree and disagree, and I don't like it, is to. Yeah, and as QA Library rightly says here, and this is what I think he wants to do. So QA Library says, currently in the USA, it takes 3 to 5 years to build a basic factory. So companies are not going to return production to the US due to cost and the length of time it takes to invest and build new factories. This is exactly what Trump wants. He wants them to build and invest in factories in the US. That's what he wants. He wants them to stop relying on having factories and relying on foreign imports. And he's prepared to hurt American businesses and American consumers to say to push this agenda. And his way of doing that is by using tariffs to use it as a way. And yes, this is going to hurt Americans. But this ideology, and I do call it an ideology, the ideology around it is to stop Americans thinking about anything else but American, to stop relying on products made in China, stop relying on anything that comes from abroad, and invest in America, build in America, use things American, don't rely on anything outside of it. And in turn, if Americans are buying products that are American, if they're not relying on things that are outside of America in any way, shape or form, the theory that I'm understanding is that whatever happens outside of America does not affect you with these tariffs and whatever, because you're relying solely on American products as an American citizen in an American country. It's the theory.
Take this example. In 2009, the Obama administration imposed a 35% tariff on imported Chinese tires to help out American tire manufacturers. One study calculated that it saved about 1,200 jobs in the US tire industry, but it ended up driving up the price of all tires, and American consumers paid an extra $1.1 billion for tires as a result. So that works out at roughly $900,000 for every job that was saved.
So he saved American jobs during that period, Obama, to save the US tire industry, but it came at a massive cost in doing so. So that's just one example of Obama putting the priority there of US tire manufacturers there, but it came at a cost in that. And my understanding is Trump wants to do that in every industry. And that's really bad. Good morning, Steve McMahon. And number 3 there, if I didn't say hello earlier.
The benefits to the protected people are smaller than the costs to the buyers, or a large part of the rest of the economy. Those who want the protection, the domestic producers, are very aware of the benefits to them, and the people they're hurting are not usually very much aware of it.
This means tariffs can go down well with voters, who often see the benefits but not the trade-offs. Which brings us to the last point in our list, and the politics of all this. For Trump, tariffs are a big part of his America First message, which resonates with many Americans who feel that things were better in the past.
Some might say it's economic nationalism. I call it common sense. I call it America First.
Protectionism seems to be politically popular. It certainly helped get Donald Trump elected in the U.S.
And here's some more background to Trump's pitch. In 2001, China joined the World Trade Organization, or WTO, which sets rules and regulations to make trade between countries easier. It led to a surge in cheap Chinese imports to the US. Think of all those toys and clothes in stores like Walmart, for example. But there were also accusations that the Chinese government wasn't playing by the WTO rules, doing things like providing subsidies so that Chinese companies could keep their prices extra low. It became really hard for US businesses to compete with Chinese ones and helped accelerate a decline in US manufacturing.
A lot of jobs were lost, and those jobs weren't easily replaced.
Communities across the United States, not huge numbers of them, but enough of them to be very noticeable, were dramatically hurt. And I think that helped to shift the public attitude away from wanting trade and towards fearing trade.
And that's a really powerful point. And that China example is a very powerful point, something that they could really use. And when you think about those people, those Americans in those industries that lost everything as a result of China, allegedly, I'm going to say allegedly, if that is true, what they've stated in this video, if you think about it, then you could understand why many Americans feel aggrieved about China when they see a lot of things in America, lot of products made by China in America, as opposed to not seeing more of maybe enough of made in the USA. And there's people who have worked in manufacturing in the US, those who've lost their jobs or businesses and whatnot, that's not gone away. That was 2001. So we're talking roughly 24, 25 years that has happened over that period. That's not gonna drop off the minds of some people. Yes, some Americans may not get that, but I do think that in a way plays politically into Trump's hands as well on certain people.
And that was happening before Trump came along, and to some extent he picked up on that.
Then there's the way Trump is using tariffs for political leverage abroad. Remember those new tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. He's not saying they're about trade. He's trying to use them as a bargaining chip for more action on drugs and illegal immigration. And Trump's announcement does put those countries under pressure because the economic impact for all of them could be huge. In Mexico's case, it exported $475 billion worth of goods to the US in 2023. A 25% tariff would make all those things more expensive and less attractive for buyers in the US. So that could hurt Mexican producers. But the tariff could hurt the US economy too.
Well, it would hurt the US economy. But again, the premise and the idea, now obviously he's using it as a political weapon, but again, the premise is, guys, is again, stop buying from abroad, start buying in America. Buy from American farmers, buy from American food manufacturers, buy American more. This is the theory that I think I'm understanding more and more here.
2/3 of the tomatoes that Americans purchase are from Mexico. 90% of the avocados that they purchase are from Mexico, just to mention 2 examples. So that guac is definitely going to cost extra.
It goes much further than the cost of fruit and vegetables. US manufacturers depend heavily on components that come from places like Mexico and China. Trump's plan will push up the cost of those components, what economists call inputs.
Over the last few decades, we've outsourced either manufacturing the entire product overseas or outsource many of the components they produce overseas.
Manufacturing today is very much global. About half of everything we import into the United States are manufacturing inputs. So when you apply tariffs to those inputs, you actually harm American manufacturers. When the Trump administration applied tariffs on steel and aluminum back in 2018, that harmed steel-consuming industries in the United States, like automakers.
Another reason Trump's new tariffs could backfire is that they could hurt US companies that operate in other countries. In some ways, that's on purpose, because for Trump, the whole point is to force those companies to make stuff at home instead.
My message is simple. Make your product here in America and only in America. We're not going to watch our wealth and jobs get ripped away from us and sent to foreign countries.
But
I think, yeah, we're starting to... I think the picture's quite clear. If you've been watching since the start of this video, I think the picture is quite clear now when you think about the tariffs and why he's so keen on tariffs. And that word protectionism. He wants to do everything that a lot of previous US presidents wanted to do. I think... I haven't heard him say this, but I think he's against free trade. I think he doesn't want free trade. I think he wants more closed trade, and I think he wants to stop. I feel like my understanding is stop relying on other nations, whether it's closer ones or outside ones. I don't think it's just about political. I really do think this is about trying to push and force Americans to push towards more American things. And this feeling, that this thing he has with China is because China has such a grip on the world, including America, when it comes to products and trade and whatnot. I think he wants to try and break that. He wants to try to break that, especially in the US more than anything. But obviously, this is going to lead to the trade war, which we're already just gotten into as well.
But that will hit American companies who've moved some of their production to places like Mexico because it's cheaper. We're talking about big names like Ford and General Motors.
So the way it works is that some of the parts, components, they import from China or from the US, and then do the assembly operations in Mexico, and then re-export it back into the United States by taking advantage of the trade agreements, such that the Americans can get a very good price for the car in the end.
But what Trump wants them to do is they don't want them outside the US. They want them inside the US. They want them inside the US, doing it inside there. While at the same time also wanting Americans to have... Well, I'm not sure if he cared about the prices that Americans pay. I don't think he cares about that. I think it's all about all about the premise America first. There. If you want to understand how US works, you look up the way they get oil and gas and where it is processed. Tip USA, not built on a new oil refinery since 1979. Oh, I know they get a lot from Canada. I believe they get quite a lot of oil and gas from Canada. Correct me if I'm wrong in that QA library. I'm pretty sure that's pretty true. Actually, Mary, good to see you there, buddy. Hope you're doing well.
Probably the biggest threat for the US economy is the risk of retaliatory tariffs, i.e. countries targeted by Trump responding with tariffs of their own. In other words, a trade war. Mexico's president has already said she will retaliate.
A un arancel vendrá otro en respuesta.
I think it's pretty. This obvious video was made before the announcement that they were going to sort it out. Just want to put that reference in there as people are listening.
Y así hasta que pongamos en riesgo empresas comunes.
And check out this chart. Mexico, Canada, and China, the three countries Trump is initially targeting, are the 3 biggest destinations for U.S. exports. That's a lot of U.S. trade that would suffer from a trade war. So you can see why some people are skeptical about whether Trump's tariff plan will boost the U.S. economy in the way he says it will. A lot depends on how much Trump actually follows through on, how other countries ultimately respond, and also what time frame we use to measure the results.
Well, it was a very good, very breakdown video of it on tariffs there. I don't think it's worth reading the rest of it because it's kind of been explained to us in that video. I'm just going to have a read of what you guys are saying in the chat because I know there's quite a bit of discussion about this in the chat. So just let me have a look here. Any EU companies producing medicine and medical machines, high performance engines for cars, aircraft and military machines in the US, of course they will, says Zhao. See, I am seeing in the supermarkets and even online shops American goods on heavy discounts and people on boycotting them. This is just the beginning. Yeah, the price of a car in the US is expected to rise by $300,000, says Steve McMahon. Madmont33 says to number 3 that the UK gets most of its tobacco from European growers. Just search for it, and Poland provides the most to the UK. America not in the top 5 suppliers. Zhao also says there are Korean, Chinese, Japanese and German consortiums with Portuguese capital to investing in building factories, and battery factories have zero American. Kiro Libre also says Tesla sales last year dropped 28%. So far, 3 countries in Europe have reported that sales have dropped 42% to 48%. Yeah, this is how you hurt. This is how you hurt him with Tesla. Like really hurt. That's one way of hurting him. If the US is not a reliable trade partner, countries will find other markets. That's what ends up happening. People will switch markets. That's what people do in the end. The USA is falling apart. Putin is behind this as number 3. Yeah, Russia is definitely playing a hand in this. We'll talk about that later. Listen to this in the morning news. Shifting trade from the US. Yeah. Jan also says number of shares of markets that the US has already lost in import and export. Where with this joke, no one wants to deal with a volatile partner or interested in the future of volatile currency. Tariffs will form manufacturing jobs out of the United States. We don't know that, Steve. It won't. We don't know that for sure. We don't know that all of them will. The thing is, as QA Library points out, it would take like up to 5 years for a US manufacturer. That's for starting now. The thing is, if he was imposing these tariffs, right? Let's say hypothetically he actually pushed those for other ones through, yeah, on his top 3, yeah. We won't know that from a year or 2 years. We would have to see in the next 5 to 10 years whether or not that would be the case. I think initially, yes. Initially, yes, you would have some of that because people with common sense, as of right now, the common sense right now, I'm trying, because this is what I'm trying to do, guys. I'm always trying to put myself in the mindset of why other people think the way they think. Okay, this is what I'm trying to do, trying to understand why Trump is doing what he's doing. I know he's a madman. I know he's a nutter, guys. But I'm trying to do this from a logical point of view to try and understand why he's thinking the way he's thinking, why he's doing this. Yeah, I know he's a crazy guy. I'm not hiding that, okay? But I think that to try to understand why he's doing what he's doing. A part of me does think that I really think he wants to he really does care about America first, and that he really wants to push everything, push anything that's non-US out of the US, even if it costs people, even if it costs lives, even if it costs jobs, even if it costs business. But the thing is, and I'm sure many of you will understand this, is that by doing what he is doing, he's also hurting Republicans, Democrats, and many billionaires and millionaires, many businesses, including probably his own business when it comes to this. So he's also hurting everyone around him, as well as his enemies, in trying to do this, what I believe is I don't know, I don't just call this Project 2025, I call this Project America, of America, America, America. That's the way I'm thinking of this here. Number 3, thank you so much for the 5 gifted memberships. Only 2 registered, I'm afraid, but I do appreciate the support nonetheless. You can leave a super chat if you wanted to instead, but I appreciate the support nonetheless. Thank you for that. Only two will go through. If only 2 come up, and only 2 will go through. So Mellow Maggot was gifted a membership, and Paul Hammond were gifted memberships there. What will happen is you'll get refunded the rest of the money by YouTube. I know it's YouTube that won't fix it. Mr. E, good to see you there, buddy. Hope you're doing well. The far right group is barred from selling any related merchandise or symbols without the consent of the church. What's that on? 64% of oil is from Canada's Secure Library. Yes, correct. That's it. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because they haven't. Yeah, because I would have thought they were still doing more drilling in Texas, but I guess not. We do know that in happening during Trump's last term, all manufacturing in the US depends on the imported components. Manufacturers will move outside the US to avoid tariff. And his message will be to stop relying outside of manufacturers and start building and start. The message that I would see if I'm him trying to do what he's trying to do, because like I said, I'm trying to understand what he's trying to do, guys. If I'm trying to do what he's trying to do, I would be trying to say to manufacturers and whatnot. I was saying, stop relying on components and things from outside the US. Stop it. If you really care about America, start making American components. If you can't build something without use of American components, build something else. That's the message that I would be pushing out there if I'm Donald Trump. In this, I would be saying that's what I would be doing. I'm trying to put this in a way that's applying common sense to it. That's what I'm trying to do. Thank you for the £2 super chat, number 3. Register for membership, people, if that helps. Thank you for your support, number 3. And do check out number 3's YouTube channel, guys, as well. If you want to put a link for your YouTube channel down below, number 3, please do. And Daily Blase's YouTube channel as well. He's put up another video today, guys, so do check out his YouTube channel as well. Stig McMahon, thank you so much for the 10 New Zealand dollars, my friend. I really appreciate your support. Ask a 9-year-old how you will get dumb efforts mindset, says Mad Monk 33. Indeed. Thank you guys both for your super chats. Really appreciate your support. So I guess I'm doing a live stream on Friday. I've already got an idea what we're going to be doing. So thank you for that, guys. So I thought that was very interesting and very informative, just that video alone. So now we're going to see another crisis in the US. So this is from the Association Press. Good to see you, Tories don't get tased. I hope you're doing well. So Elon Musk tightens the grip on the federal government as Democrats raise the alarm. So this is really, really bad. If anybody thinks that this is okay, they need to get their head examined, because what you have right here is a man who has control of things within the federal government that has not had to go through the same what's the right word? The same procedures as every other senator, as any other official in any other official place within the government. Elon has been able to bypass all that, and somehow this man has gotten massive power within the federal government, and at the moment there doesn't seem right now that anyone can stop him. And I think someone made a great analogy. I can't remember who it was, but someone made the analogy that Elon Musk was literally Dominic Cummings in the UK under Boris Johnson, trying to do the exact same thing, but it didn't work out for Dominic Cummings. Now, my hope is that what happened to Dominic Cummings happens to Elon Musk, and that he tries to seize too much power, and that my hope is that Republicans in Congress and Republicans in the Senate get so much pressure put under them from their own people in their own areas, that they forced Trump to push Elon Musk out. That is what I'm hoping that will happen. And I say hoping. I'm not saying it will, but that is my hope that that is what will happen. So let me read a bit more into this, guys, to understand just how bad this is. So Elon Musk is rapidly consolidating control over the last sways of the federal government, with President Donald Trump's blessing sidelining career officials and gaining access to sensitive databases and dismantling a leading source of humanitarian assistance. The speed and scope of his work has been nothing short of stunning. In little more than 2 weeks since Trump took office, the world's richest man has created an alternative power structure inside the federal government for the purpose of cutting spending and pushing out employees. None of this is happening with congressional approval, inviting a constitutional clash over the limits of the presidential authority. So he's literally gone in there and no one is stopping him right now. And the thing is, with the Democrats not having control of the Senate and only having and just a slim majority in Congress, what can they do? There's very limited things that Democrats can do here. And right now, the Republicans are pretty much towing the line when it comes to Donald Trump. But even they know that this is really, really bad. Mithril, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. This is extremely scary. Civil conflict lightly. We can't rule that out in the next 4 years. So Musk has been named as a special government employee, which is subjects him to less stringent rules on ethnic and financial disclosures than other workers. And Trump has given Musk office space in the White House complex, where he oversees a team of people at the so-called Department of Doge, basically. The team has been dispensed throughout federal agencies to gather information and deliver edicts. Some of them were spotted on Monday at the Department of Education, which Trump has vowed to abolish. Republicans defend Musk as simply carrying out Trump's slash and burn campaign promises. Trump has made no secret of desire to put Musk, the billionaire entrepreneur behind the electric automaker Tesla and the rocket company SpaceX, in charge of retooling the federal government. Elon can't do and won't do anything without our approval, Trump told reporters in an Oval Office on Monday. The Republican president has also played down concerns about Musk's conflict of interest as he flexes his power over the bureaucracy, even though his businesses face regular scrutiny and have federal contracts. Right there, I mean, I think everyone can say this is conflict of interest. We know that. Because if you are a rival in America against Tesla or any other businesses associated with Trump, he can make life very, very difficult for you. Where we think there's a conflict or there is a problem, we won't let him go near. But he has some very good ideas, Trump says. Democrats, for their part, accuse Musk of leading a coup from within the government by amassing unaccountable and illegal power. We will do everything in our power in the Senate and the House to stop this outrage, Senator Chris McFarland of Maryland said. And in the meantime, since we don't have many Republican colleagues who want to help us, we're doing everything we can with our colleagues through the courts to make sure that we uphold the rule of law. The apex of Musk's work so far come on Monday at the Washington headquarters for the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAid, where yellow tape blocked access to lobby and hundreds of employees were locked out of their computer systems. Musk said Trump had agreed to let them shutter the agency. It's not an apple or a worm in it. What we have is just a ball of worms, Musk said of the world's largest provider of humanitarian development and security assistance. You've got to basically get rid of the whole thing. It's beyond repair. There's a separate article, if we get time, I want to go through with regards to that. We know that what he's going to do here is literally going to kill people. Musk has also turned his attention to the General Service Administration, or GSA, which manages federal government buildings. An email sent last week from the Washington headquarters instructed regional managers to begin terminating leases on roughly 7,500 federal workers nationwide. The initiative being led by Nicole Hollander, according to an agency employee who requested autonomously to discuss internal matters. Hollander described herself on LinkedIn as an employee at X, Musk's most social media platform. This has gone beyond the power. This is out of control. This is not a normal situation, said Keller Chatterjee, the executive director of Free DC, a local ASCII organization. She participated in protests on Monday outside the Office of Personnel Management, which is one of the lesser-known federal agencies key to Musk's agenda. On Musk's work, he has unnerved federal employees who are being nudged toward the exits, and on Sunday night, concerns swept through the workforce that they could be locked out of internal human resources systems, denying them access to their own personal files that show pay history, lengths of service and qualification. Supervisors to some agencies encountered employees to download their records. Call an SF-50 to personal computers so that they could prove that their employment history in the event of disputes. So essentially, they could lock them out of their own personal computers, take away their evidence of who they are within the system, and kick them out. That's terrifying. I'm not sure what they can do in this situation if they don't have this. I'm not sure what they can do. Musk has been tinkering with things his entire life, learning to code as a child in South Africa and becoming rich with his online payment PayPal. He bought the social media platform Twitter a little more than 2 years ago and renamed it X and slashed its workforce while turning it into his personal political megaphone. Now Musk is popping open the hood of the federal government like it's one of his cars or rockets. The Silicon Valley playbook to disrupt the status quo by disregarding and disobeying rules that you don't like is in full effect here, said Rob Langer, an expert on entrepreneurship and innovation in business at Tulu University. One of the most significant steps was gaining access to the U.S. Treasury payment system. This is the most frightening. Liebskin, good to see you. Which is responsible for 1 billion payments per year, totaling $5 trillion. It includes sensitive information involving bank accounts and social security payments. No one outside of the staff doing the work has ever asked to access the payment files, said Richard Gregg, who spent 4 decades working for the Treasury and oversaw the payment system as a physical assistant secretary. It is unclear what Musk wants to do with the payment system. He claims that he could trim $1 trillion from the federal deficit by just addressing waste, fraud, and abuse. How is he having access to that? Is that going to do that? What is the purpose of this? What are you doing touching, accessing people's accounts, people's money here? What right do you have? You're not even an elected official. And this guy, this madman, because he is a fucking madman, he's got little access to people's bank accounts and social security payments. Who the fuck thought this was a good idea? I cannot believe that Trump is allowing him to do this. Because Trump is saying he's allowing him to do this. This is insane. This is insane. And I said this. I've said this before and I said this again. This is going to kill Americans. Literally going to kill Americans. That's the biggest data hack ever in the world, said Senator Tammy Wilson, a Wisconsin Democrat who told reporters in Madison, and I'm outraged about it. Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer from Democrat from New York City said the Treasury Secretary Scott Benson said must revoke Trump's access to the payment system. Well, how do you stop him? Like, what can they do to stop him? We must halt this unlawful and dangerous power grab, he said on Capitol Hill. A group representing retirees and union workers sued Bernesk and the Treasury Department on Monday to get them to stop sharing personal and financial information with Doge. Musk's role is partially a reward for his work on behalf of Trump during the campaign. He spent roughly $250 million supporting Trump through the American Pact, which included door-to-door canvassing and digital advertising. Although the pact has not announced the next plans, Musk has suggested that he could endorse primary challenges to Republican lawmakers who defied Trump's agenda. Thank you, number three, Alistair Keir, thank you so much for the 5 gifted memberships. Unfortunately, number 3 gifted some memberships earlier, and only 2 registered. So, yeah, it looks like the memberships are capped for some reason. Are capped again, I'm afraid. So, appreciate your support, but yeah, might have to wait till the end of the month before trying it again, my friend. But thank you so much for your support. Musk has also described his work overhauling the federal government in existential terms, making it clear that he will push as hard and as far as he could. If it is not possible now, it never will be possible. This is our shot, he said. This is the best hands of cards we're ever going to have. If we don't take advantage of this best hands of cards, it's never going to happen. People's bank accounts, people's sensitivity, people's information. And bear in mind, there has been reports that this man has spoken to Russia. A couple of weeks, has had conversations with the Russian government. It was, and he was also, I believe, a Russian official, a Russian government minister, praised Donald Trump and the work that it's not Donald Trump, Elon Musk and the work that he's doing. I mean, how much bigger alarm bells do you need to get when you hear that? It's just absolutely insane. The army or the police could stop it. Why would they? Why would they? He's part of the government. They can't do that. They can't do anything. The police and the army are they're upholding the rule of law and the Constitution, but I'm not sure how they could step in that. It's too complicated to say that. YouTube censorship. No, it's censorship specifically on me. I had a discussion about YouTube about this membership issue, and they won't fix it. I've told them about this, and they won't fix it. Thank you, Alistair Key. You didn't need to. Thank you so much for the £10 super chat, my friend. Thank you. I really appreciate your support. But yeah, really, really scary times for Americans, especially those who have Social Security and have their details with the government and whatnot. It's very incredibly frightening, to say the least. It's really, really bad, guys. If they can, they could decide that it's against the Constitution. Yeah, I think. We need to hear what can the U.S. courts and lawyers are going to be able to say, what they can. I'm wondering what they can do on their part about this. What they can do with regards to this. But would the Senate then have to make a decision as well? And the problem is the Senate is very strongly in Republican favor. Are they going to allow this as well? It's very difficult to know. Very difficult to know indeed. Guys, the next story I've got for you guys. Wow, we've already gone nearly an hour. I knew those last two stories would take a long time. This one's still frightening, to say the least, but not as bad as the other two, the other story we've just listened to, but still. So migrant flights head to Guantanamo Bay as legal questions swirl around Trump's plans. So what is Trump's plan? I'll tell you exactly what Trump's plan is. To turn Guantanamo Bay into a place to any illegal immigrants that they can't deport to other countries. This is where he plans to send them. This is what he's going to do. He's going to shift them all to Guantanamo Bay. The same Guantanamo Bay that Joe Biden had been trying to clear out and is now going to be filled with migrants instead, outside the US jurisdiction as well. So their safety is not even guaranteed as well. That's what I think is the plan here. If rather than hold them up within America, he's going to shift them out here. If he can't shift them back to the countries of origin, this is where they're going to end up. And it's very scary. As tensions went up in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, to hold migrants, attorneys at the Department of Homeland Security and Pentagon were still trying to determine whether it was legal to take the unprecedented step of flying migrants from the U.S. southern border to the facility, according to two U.S. officials and a person familiar with the planning. On Tuesday, a military flight carrying migrants is expected to head to Guantanamo Bay, according to one of the officials. The move stems from President Donald Trump's memorandum directing the federal government to prepare the U.S. naval base there to house tens of thousands of migrants. While Guantanamo Bay hosts a migrant processing center, it has largely been used for migrants interdicted at sea, not brought from the United States. They'd be pushing the limits for where the Immigration and Nationalities Act applies, says a former Homeland Security official. Immigration laws apply to the United States, and it's unclear what would happen to those moved out of the country only to be held in detention elsewhere. The source familiar with the plan said questions like how long the migrants can legally be held there and what their rights would be while detained are still unanswered. It is also unclear whether the migrants will have access to legal or social service while detained at the base. I've got a very worrying feeling that they will not have that access. I really don't. I really hope that people, those who understand the legalities and whatnot, are really going to apply as much pressure on they can and use the US courts as much as they can to stop this as much as possible, to reduce this as much as possible. because I fear that there will be people, very, very, even very vulnerable people that will be sent to Guantanamo Bay, where they will be at risk, and then they will be Yeah, it's just gonna be an absolute fucking mare. The Constitution's out the window, says Caffel. It does appear that way at the moment. Elon getting the contract to fit shower blocks in Gizmo, says Mifro as well. Senior Trump officials have continued to tout the plan, casting it as a facility designated for criminals. It's the perfect place to provide for migrants who are traveling out of our country. Also, hardened criminals Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said at the U.S. southern border on Monday. Pentagon assets have already been sent to the base to build tents near the migrant operation to center to house migrants. The first tents started going up last week, sources said. U.S. Marines flew down over the weekend to help with the construction, and the Army is heading there soon to provide support services like military police, a quartermaster feeding team, and a medical company. At its maximum capacity, the centre can hold less than 200 people, underscoring how big of a lift this will be. Sources familiar with the planning said the massive undertaking is expected to take 30 days. Discussions have also ramped up between private contractors and the government to build several tent facilities to hold 30,000 people, according to a source familiar with the planning. The facilities are expected to hold single adults. They're expected to be transported to Guantanamo Bay on military flights before they're reprimanded to their countries of origin. Federal immigration authorities have used tent facilities to hold migrants along the U.S. southern border before, but they are used for temporary periods and must comply with certain standards. The former Homeland Security officials have expressed concerns over swiftly setting up similar facilities at Guantanamo Bay without a clear sense of how long people will be held and who. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem told NBC's Meet the Press over the weekend that it's not the plan to hold migrants there indefinitely. Hold them to that. That's what they've said, yeah? Quotes. That is not their plans. That's what they're saying, yeah? Let's see how long they hold that. The plan is to have a process that we will follow that's laid out in law and make sure what we're dealing with these individuals appropriately according to what state and what the national law directs. So we'll work with Congress to make sure that we're addressing our legal immigration laws and using Guantanamo Bay appropriately, she said. Under the Biden administration, Homeland Security officials assessed the possibility of using the center to temporarily hold migrants at the event of mass maritime migration. The process to expand capacity was expected to take around 30 days, depending on what support elements could be pulled in and how quickly. Trump's top immigration advisors previously told CNN that management of Guantanamo Bay detention facilities for migrants would be overseen by immigration and customs enforcement. We're just going to expand upon existing migration centers at border, Kazar Tom Homan had said, adding that the facility would be overseen by our migrant centers ran out of Miami. I don't like it, but I can just see this government doing that. I mean, when we think about what the UK were trying to do to shift them to Rwanda, you think about what Australia does with their. I'm sure someone will mention the island that. I'm sure someone will mention the island that. Will mention the island. That Australians send their migrants to, but. The fact that migrants are being sent there today, literally today, this is the start of something. This is the start of. There is a very possibility that Guantanamo Bay could be turned as one of those detention centers or camps. You know, the term camps for migrants to be held up in. Nauru, thank you guys, Nauru. The island there in Australia, because that's what they do. They send them onto another island, and this is exactly what Trump is thinking: to get them out of the country, get them off the mainland, get them somewhere where they're not a problem for Americans, not for American people to see, but push them out of the way in a place where they won't be seen by the American people, and then they can deal with them in Guantanamo Bay outside of America's laws and whatnot. This is exactly what I think. This is what I think. The mindset of it. Oh, they've stopped it. Thank you, Steve. I wasn't 100% confirmed on that, but yeah, that's exactly what I think the mindset is on that. Is to push them to Guantanamo Bay. I think this is the whole concept. But obviously, as you guys rightly pointed out, and this was pointed out in the article, the legalities. What's the legalities of this? That's the questions that we're going to be asking about all this. Heard of all this before? 1920s, 1930s in a European country, says Kier. I wonder what country that was. Time for the Cuban Liberation Army to strike, says Mithril. Is that free in Puerto Rico? Are you talking about there? Out of sight, out of mind. Exactly, Mr. E. That's exactly what it's all about, guys. So, guys, I need to take a little breather. We've got a couple more stories I want to cover with regards to Trump and that. But I've got a funny video for you guys here. I haven't actually listened to this in full, but I know when it comes from this man, you know it's going to be a bit of fun. So this is from Michael Spicer from The Room Next Door, titled Donald Trump's Plane Crash Fact Checking. Oh dear, oh dear.
The massive search and rescue mission was underway throughout the night, leveraging every asset at our disposal.
Yep, that's it. Just keep to the facts. Just tell them the facts.
We do not know what led to this crash, but we have some very strong opinions.
No, we don't. We don't have opinions. Not now, just facts.
And I think we'll probably state those opinions now.
No, we won't.
I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary.
What does that mean?
You remember that?
No, no one does.
But I do want to point out that...
Oh no. What are you doing?
Various articles that appeared prior to my entering office.
If you're talking about that one article by Fox News, can you just put it away?
And here's one. The FAA's diversity push includes focus on hiring people with severe intellectual and psychiatric disabilities.
You're talking about an initiative which began back in 2019 to recruit people with targeted disabilities for a career in air traffic operations, which Fox News decided to turn into a misleading article for clicks during the Biden administration. And by the way, cast your mind back to 2019. Who was president then? I'll give you a clue. The colour of his skin is the same as his tie.
This was on January 14th, so that was a week before I entered office.
No, it was January 14th, 2024, actually, but it doesn't matter because everything you've said up to this point has been a complete lie anyway, so just make up the date. Why not make up a brand new date? How about that? What about March Tobury the 50 plinth?
Then another article, the Federal Aviation Administration.
There isn't another article. It's just that Fox News article. Where's this article coming from?
The FAA is actively recruiting workers who suffer severe intellectual disabilities.
This is the same Fox News article that you're reading from. You're just reading a different bit of it. Can someone explain paragraphs to him?
They include hearing, vision, missing extremities.
This is just their general diversity policy.
Partial paralysis.
It's just their general diversity policy.
Complete paralysis, epilepsy.
It's just a general diversity policy across all operations. It's got nothing to do with the specifics of air traffic
control. Which is overseen by Secretary Pete Buttigieg.
Oh, no.
He's a disaster. He was a disaster as a mayor.
Can we just skip the insults? Because I've got something in my slow cooker.
And he's a disaster now. He's just got a good line of bullshit.
The plane only crashed 12 hours ago. Do you really think mudslinging is appropriate at this time? You know, just on a scale of 1 to disgusting.
Should not have happened. Please, sir.
What? Who's this?
Well, thank you, Mr. President, for your leadership.
Oh, here we go, the bearded dog whistle.
But I just want to reemphasize something the President said.
Yeah, absolutely, why not? I really want to hear everything said all over again, but this time by a baby Nazi with a crayon beard.
If you go back to just some of the headlines over the past 10 years...
What headlines?
You have many hundreds of people...
What people?
...suing the government because they would like to be air traffic controllers, but they were turned away because of the color of their skin.
Okay, how about an example? Just let's hear an example. Just one example.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Nope, he's gone. Okay, well, that was a completely necessary interjection directly after a plane crash where nothing has been proven yet. Thanks for that, Cabbage Patch Satan.
I've had the honor of hearing tapes. Tapes are scary, very scary tapes. He's coming in the path, and for some reason, he had a helicopter.
You don't need to describe all this.
And going at an angle that was...
That was what?
Unbelievably bad.
Oh, I see.
You had a helicopter
that had the ability to stop. I have helicopters.
Please don't brag about having helicopters during a national tragedy. I mean, I don't know why I should have to say that, but
It had the ability to go up or down. It had the ability to turn.
yes, we know what helicopters can do.
And the turn it made was not the correct turn, obviously.
This is certainly clearing up a lot of things. So.
You could have slowed down the helicopter substantially. You could have stopped the helicopter.
You've said all this.
So you could have gone up. You could have gone down.
Said all this.
And you could have gone straight up, straight down.
You've said it again.
You could have turned. You could have done a million different maneuvers.
I see. Could you name them all? Because, I'm having the time of my life here.
They shouldn't have been at the same height. Because if it wasn't the same height...
Do tell.
You could have gone under it or over it.
Me, really?
Some really bad things happened.
Did they?
And some things happened that shouldn't have happened. So you had a helicopter going in an identical direction. You had a helicopter that was at the exact same height as somebody going in essentially the opposite direction.
Fuck's sake. What the fuck's sake? I'm so glad I never listened to that full press conference. But fucking hell. I do like when Michael Spicer does those room next doors. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of them in the future. Yes, I know that was a long one, guys. There is a funny side, but there is also a very serious side of just how fucking stupid he is. I just want to point out as well, while we do laugh at Trump, we should also remember that people lost their lives during that tragedy, and that there is still obviously an investigation underway, and that I'm sure like me, like the rest of you, obviously continue to give our sincere condolences to friends and family of those who lost their loved ones on that helicopter and the plane, rightfully so. I think I really want to put that reference out there. But to Donald Trump to try to make it a political football and have a fucking game about all this is pretty fucking disgusting, especially when the friends and family of those are fucking grieving at that time as well. I think it's an important factor as well. But I just wanted to put that out there because I don't want people to get the wrong context that I'm making fun of people's lives being lost, because I really am not. What I'm making fun of is Donald Trump making a fucking laugh and a joke and not taking the seriousness and severity of what's happening here. Having said that, if you haven't already, guys, seeing as how we got so many people here today, please hit that like button on YouTube, be greatly appreciated, and share this across social media so others are notified of this live stream. And if you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further and financially support me in the work that I do here, you can leave a super chat down below. Your comment will guarantee to get read, or you can join the membership for as little as 99p. Other ways you can support me is by buying me a coffee. Links for that in the description. And if you want more content, do check out the Patreon and Rumble. There is exclusive content on both those platforms. There's even free Patreon content on there, as well as free content on Rumble on there as well. Monday to Friday, there's lots of content on those as well. So if you want to see additional content, do check them out. You don't even have to pay to join the Patreon, but you can become a member, and you can still check out the free content on Patreon. And I do plenty of additional videos on there, just like I do here on YouTube. So if you want to see more, do check that out, guys. And do consider joining our Discord community, which is free to join as well. Link for that is in the description. Thank you so much for the £2 super chat number 3. Yellow alert, orange alert. It's the next part is red alert, yeah. Thank you so much for that £2 super chat. I appreciate it. No, none of us are having a laugh. I know you. None of us are having a laugh at. No. I want to make that very clear. None of us are having a laugh at the expense of people dying. We're having a laugh at Donald Trump for making a fucking fool of himself in that video. Let's be very clear about that. That's what we're laughing at. That is what we are laughing at. But I wanted to put that context in there because I don't want people to get the wrong interpretation. Right, the next story I got for you guys is from the New York Times. The headline is Donald Trump and Netanyahu meeting is expected to focus on the Gaza ceasefire. The president will welcome the Israeli Prime Minister to the White House in his first in-person visit with another world leader since returning to power. Of all the world leaders, of course, it had to be Netanyahu, his best friend and his buddy, because for those who don't know, there's actually long history between the Trump family and Netanyahu's family. I believe Trump Jr. has had close connections with Netanyahu as well. So there is actually a long-term relationship between the two. It's not just the case of Israel and America's relationship. There's a much closer relationship between Netanyahu and Trump. Netanyahu's family and his and in there. Excuse me. I'm just going to put that in the chat there, just for Steve McMillan's case there. Since they've since both of them are now in power, yeah, I don't know what they're going to discuss. I don't know what's going to be coming, but this is certainly going to be interesting. When Trump was asked about the ceasefire, what's happening in Gaza, he didn't come across any kind of realistic opportunities that were saying that things are going to get better. I hope so, but we'll have to wait and see. Well, let's read a little bit into this, obviously, because I think it's today they're meeting, or tomorrow. Correct me if I'm wrong in the chat. So President Trump will welcome Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel to the White House on Tuesday. Today. In his first in-person meeting with another world leader since returning to power 2 weeks ago, the two are expected to discuss negotiations for the second phase of the fragile ceasefire with Hamas. I should point out as well, for reference as well, discussions between Hamas and Israel for the second phase is already started. Discussions between the two sides. I just want to put that out there for those who don't know as well. I've seen this on Al Jazeera and Middle Eastern Eye reference as well. Iran's efforts to build nuclear weapons and new arms shipments and hopes for a deal to normalize relations with Saudi Arabia. The meeting, which is part of a multi-day visit to Washington by Mr. Netanyahu, is meant to demonstrate the close ties between the two leaders after more than a year of war between Israel and Hamas, severely restraining relationships between the Israeli leader and President Joseph R. Biden Jr. Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu have forged a close relationship during the president's first term. In remarks to reports over the weekend, Mr. Trump said he was looking forward to the meeting. Discussions with the Middle East with Israel with various surveys and other countries are progressing, the president said, adding that Mr. Netanyahu will be coming on Tuesday. I think we have some very big meetings scheduled. It's interesting I'm wondering what's going to come out, but I'm not sure what they're going to say publicly and what they're going to say privately. But Mr. Netanyahu will be going to his meeting at odds with Mr. Trump on several key issues, according to analysis. Those are unlikely to include questions on how to confront Iran's nuclear ambitions and how to quickly end the war in Gaza. The Trump administration has made clear that he wants to see all of the hostages held by Hamas returned and then move on to a grand bargain involving Saudi Arabia that formalizes relations with Israel. All of that hinges on an end to the fighting in Palestinian enclave. With Mr. Netanyahu's right-wing government in jeopardy, if the war ends with Hamas still in control there and there is no other plans for Gaza in place, analysts expect the Israeli Prime Minister to try and delay movement to the next stage of the deal, which calls for a permanent ceasefire, which I have said that they are making those discussions, but whether they will, not sure. Well, they are making discussions, but it's whether or not we will have something will come out of it is the question. Netanyahu made this salami deal, said Shia Efron, a senior director of policy research at Israel's Policy Forum, a New York-based research group, referring to the three-phase agreement with Hamas. He's always playing for time and kicking the can down the road, something he's an expert in. Trump wants to cut to the chase and end the war. But does Trump want to end the war, or does Trump want... But does Trump want to end the war? That's the question. I don't know if he really wants to end the war. I think for him, like, we already know that Trump wants basically all the Palestinians moved out of Gaza. He would rather not have this war and rather just have them all taken out of the land. We know he wants that because he's literally said that. Mr. Netanyahu is also in a vulnerable position internationally, with an arrest warrant issued by the International Criminal Court accusing him of war crimes during the conflict with Hamas. Stakes are really high for the Prime Minister, to be clear. Thomas Ed Anais, a former US ambassador to Israel. President Trump is holding all the cards and it's really clear he wants to see all the hostages come home. Negotiations have begun to move beyond the first phase of the ceasefire in Gaza, during which Hamas has pledged to release 33 prisoners in exchange for a pullback of Israeli troops from populated areas in Gaza and freedom of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. I should also mention as well, if anybody thinks that Netanyahu is going to face any kinds of crimes for what he has done, people got another thing coming. He has sanctuary in America. You know, Donald Trump will guarantee his safety in America. If for whatever reason he becomes vulnerable in Israel, he will give Netanyahu that sanctuary. Trump has repeatedly claimed credit for the deal, which was actually negotiated for months during the Biden administration. I will say that, yes, the Biden administration does take credit for bringing the deal forward, absolutely. But things did not start properly moving until the Trump people came in. I think that we do have to, so there is a bit of both on that. But the faith of the second phase of the deal, which is a ceasefire supposed to become permanent, will be on Mr. Trump's watch. Mr. Netanyahu met in Washington on Monday with Steve Wilcott, Mr. Trump's Middle Eastern envoy. After the meeting, Mr. Netanyahu's office said in a statement that Israel is prepared to send a working-level delegation to Qatar, one of the main countries' mediations between Israel and Hamas, at the end of the week in order to discuss technical details related to the continuous implementation of the agreement. Now, remember, it's very important that people within Netanyahu's government, Smokovich and the Israeli foreign minister, Ben-Gvir, I think it is as well. I'm sure I've got the names right. They do not want this going through. They do not want this. They want to wipe out Hamas. They want to continue the war. They do not want to give Hamas breathing space. They've made that very clear. They want them wiped out. Once back in Israel, Mr. Netanyahu will convene his security cabinet to discuss Israel's overall position regarding the second stage of the deal, which will guide the continuation of the negotiations, statement added. Adding to the anxiety in the region were reports on Monday that the US intelligence officials believe Iran is seeking to build a cruiser atomic weapon that could develop quickly if the leadership in Iran decide to do so. This sounds like Iraq all over again. Just that. I hope they do not try to spin this and try to claim that they need to militarily invade Iran based on the fact that they may or may not have nuclear weapons. I hope that that is not what we are going to witness within the next year or two under a Trump administration. I'm very, very cautious of that. It remains unclear whether the decision has been made, and Iran's new president has indicated he would like to begin a negotiation with Mr. Trump administration, even as the country's nuclear scientists push ahead with their efforts. Mr. Netanyahu has said for years that letting Iran become a nuclear power would be an existential threat to Israel and an enormous destabilizing event for the United States and nations across the globe. And in 2018, Mr. Trump pulled out of the deal negotiated during the Obama administration that aimed to put limits on Iran's nuclear ambitions. Mr. Trump and Mr. Netanyahu are likely to discuss other ways to keep Iran from succeeding in building a bomb, including the possibility of taking military action against Iran's nuclear facilities. The Prime Minister has advocated taking military action in the past, but Israel has always pulled back after pressure from the United States. At the same time, the 2 years are expected to discuss the possibility of normalizing relations with Saudi Arabia. Mr. Trump has pushed the idea during his first term, and Mr. Biden can do so after he took office. That effort largely stalled after Israel's bombardment of Gaza in its campaign against Hamas and has killed tens of thousands of people, many of them civilians. The Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia has declared that the kingdom will not establish diplomatic relations with Israel before the establishment of a Palestinian state, an apparent shift in Riyadh's position that could potentially complicate normalization talks. And the Arab nations as well. I also want to point this out. I've done a video on it I need to charge my so I can keep an eye on my Twitch chat, so apologies for this, guys. And I also want to point out as well that the Arab nations have also have said, including Saudi Arabia, any kind of idea or possibility of moving Palestinians out of Gaza. They have said no to this as well, as not just Trump's American allies, but the Arab nations as well. And you can see that on Rumble. That will drop during the week as well. We know all about this. Don't need to repeat that. Also on the agenda was a request by Mr. Netanyahu for the United States to move forward with a set of pending arms transfers in Israel amounts over $8 billion worth of bombs, missiles, artillery, and upper weapons. These orders are still in an informal congressional review process. A U.S. official said the State Department was moving forward with 2 additional large sets of orders of weapons of use, one for thousands of more bombs and one for armored Caterpillar D9 bulldozers. The official, who was not authorized to speak publicly about the arms shipment, said the Trump administration had begun to make to Congress the informal notification necessary to initiate the weapons transfer. Mr. Biden had paused a single shipment of the largest US-made bombs to Israel amid outrage over bombing by Israeli forces in Gaza. Mr. Trump has told the Pentagon to proceed with the shipment. yeah, weapons of mass destruction. This is exactly what I'm a bit worried about here. The possibility that they may try to pin that on Iran. But obviously, today and tomorrow, we'll see what outcomes will come on that. Will come from that. I may have some clip. I may try and get some clips and whatnot for the Snowflake Watch on Thursday, not tomorrow, on Thursday for you guys, with regards to the meeting and what we hear out of it. But it's definitely going to be significant. This out of all the meetings, obviously, with regards, because where Israel go from here is going to be interesting. I don't know if Trump really does care about the ceasefire or not. I think for him, it's for him, how can he make money out of this? I think it's the bigger question when he looks at that. But I could be wrong. How many more stories I got? I'm going to stop after this. This is the last article. I'm not going to do the last one. I'll just show this one to you guys now. I'm not going to cover it I'll read the article, but I'll just share this one with you. The Senate panel advances JFK Jr.'s nomination to be the health secretary. The Senate's Finance Committee voted along party lines to send Kennedy's bid to lead the Department of Health and Social Services into the full chamber. So he's at the next stage of being appointed. He hasn't been officially appointed, but he's in that next stage there. So he's very close to getting appointed. RFK's there. White House prepares execution orders to eliminate the education department there, from NBC News as well. But I just wanted to highlight that story for you guys. But link for the article is in the description if you guys want to have a look at that. But I wanted to cover this story before we head out. I do have the funny memes for number 3 later as well. I know how much he likes them. But this story, death predicted amid the chaos of Elon Musk's shutdown of USAid. So this is obviously, we mentioned it a bit earlier in the live stream, but I wanted to cover it in a bit more from a global perspective here, that the impact of the billionaire's declaration has been swift and brutal, with food and critical drugs abandoned in warehouses, vital programs closed, and workers laid off. This is here. Now, obviously, the impact, that what Elon Musk is having in America and what he's doing there, as we discussed, is obviously heartbreaking. But considering how much aid, US aid, is given to in a global scale, this is a death blow to, I think this could be potentially millions of people as a direct result if they was to end US aid. I don't think they will end US aid. I think that's what their objective is. But this also, but not only does this in turn leaves nations and people vulnerable, but this also reduces America's influence on the countries as well, because aid allows them to have influence over countries and others. And this will open the door for other nations to take that spot in doing so as well. So if America is not going to be buying that influence and not going to be using that aid to help a country that's poor or struggling, who's going to take that spot? Russia will try and take that spot. China will take that spot. They'll happily take the influence of these nations that rely on aid in doing so. Perhaps even countries in Europe will take that spot. So it means that America will have less influence in the world as a direct result of no longer doing US aid. I think that's very concerning. So critical supplies of life-saving medicine has been blocked, and children have left without food and battling malnutrition, as multiple effects were reported across the globe after Elon Musk resolved to shut down the US government's pro-emitted international aid agency. So yeah, we talked obviously earlier what Elon Musk is doing here, but yes, DHS, you can clarify something if you really want to. That's totally fine. Chaotic scenes were seen in scores of countries as aid organizations warned the risk of escalating disease and famine across the disastrous repercussions in areas such as family planning and girls' education after President Donald Trump's decision to freeze funding to USAID. In 2023, the agency managed more than $40 billion. That's $32 billion for reference. Countless aid organizations have been forced to close down or lay off staff. Analysis confirmed that several thousand women and girls are likely to die from complications during pregnancy and childbirth as a direct result of Trump's order to freeze the aid agency for 90 days. So just right there, people will die as a direct result here. Because they want to, what, save money? Is that basically what they want to do? The EU could. The EU, he needs to be more worldwide. Yeah, the EU could fill some of these voids, but again, like, it's true that the EU could. That is the EU. Like, I didn't really think too much of the EU thinking like this, but it would allow them to gain more influence as well on other countries, like the US, like China, like Russia, where the US has. I'm not interested in that question. I've had that question asked, and I'm not interested. DHS. Yeah, but yeah, it would make sense for the EU to invest more in terms of foreign aid to these countries, because then it would give them influence over them as well. From the EU's perspective, yes, the EU could. Whether they have the money to do so, I mean, it is a question of money as well. They're buying to have influence as well as supporting nations as well. I mean, we consider the European Union to be the good guys, the smartest people. That is something definitely to think about. Trump has started billionaire Musk, who has falsely accused USAid of being a criminal organization, with scaling down the US government's lead agency for humanitarian assistance. The impact on the global aid sector has been profound and immediate, and US foreign aid accounts for 4 out of every $10 spent globally on humanitarian aid. One former senior US aid official described Musk's crackdown as an extinct-level event for the international humanitarian sector. The internal repercussions include the abandonment in warehouses of supplies and crucial drugs in Sudan, the site of what is currently the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Yeah, let me remind you of that, a lot of people. People think, that Gaza is one of the worst humanitarian crises. No, it is Sudan. Remember that. As well as in the Democratic Republic of Congo, the DRC, where recent fighting in the east has further destabilized the fragile region, and we covered some of that last week as well. What's happening there with the M23 taking over recent territory and towns. Across Africa, hundreds of thousands of children who rely on school meals have been left without substance after food was left to rot in the wake of Musk's declaration that he wanted the US aid agency to die. So how does it feel, Musk, to know that you're the very continent that you were born on, that you're killing your fellow African brothers and sisters? How does that feel to have that on your conscience, Musk? Oh, wait, you don't have one. Partners on the ground are saying that DRC and Sudan's medical supplies are stuck in warehouses, so a spokesperson for the leading international aid organization. Like many aid workers, The Guardian interviewed the spokesperson requested autonomously amid claims that officials from the Trump administration have put pressure on those in the humanitarian sector not to speak out. Many were also reluctant to talk on the record over fears of future funding. Among the projects already forced to close is a girls' education project in Nepal, raising the risk of the rise of child marriage and trafficking. All payments are frozen for these projects. There's a lot of misinformation organizations and are having to make decisions in a vacuum, said one humanitarian official. This is all as a direct result of Elon Musk's fiddling about with things that he knows nothing about. In Bangladesh, the International Center for Diarrheal Disease Research, which coordinates pioneering research into one of the most prolific killers of children, has laid off some of the world's most respected scientists working on malaria programs. In Africa, malaria control programs in Uganda have been forced to adopt equally draconian measures, with reports that dozens of vital projects for the frontline care have been closed. Further south in Malawi, where many rely on donor-funded programs for survival, fears are mounting that the aid freeze could withdraw the country's entire economy. So an entire economy in Malawi is going to be could suffer as a direct result of it, or it already has. Within farming communities, the backbone of Malawi's economy, Mike Dancia, the chair of the Nasking, apologies for misrepresenting the words, Nasking Society Organization, warned that it could upend agricultural aid programs that supply smallholds with improved seeds, irrigation and climate-resistant projects, threatening food security in a country reeling from extreme weather events. In Johannesburg, South Africa, his home nation, Projects that have relied for more than 20 years on funding from the US HIV and AIDS response programs known as PEPFAR have had to lock their doors. Darwin Neal, director of Johannesburg's LGBTQ+ clinic, called out and said his organisation, which looks after 6,000 clients, has suspended its treatment. The US is a totally unreliable partner, he said. Killing his own people as well. Across the Atlantic, similar scenes chaos were playing out in Colombia, where it's been plagued by 6 decades of internal conflict and drug-related violence. A large number of organizations rely on USAid funding. Programs provide emergency relief to families fleeing violence between armed groups and encountering farmers to swap COCA, the basic ingredient for cocaine, for legal alternatives have ceased operating. Where they're going to get their drugs now? They're going back to cocaine as a direct result of Elon Musk. Colombia's former president and Nobel Peace Prize Lorraine John Manuel Santos told The Guardian, I have seen the massive benefits these programs funded by USAID have generated for people across the country. To cut it suddenly is suddenly going to have a terrible humanitarian effect. Elsewhere, the director of a major international aid organization in Colombia, who has also requested autonomy, feared the impact on those who most needed help. The people who this is going to affect are most of those who are already without a safety net. Precisely those who are at least able to find another source of food, shelter or income, they said. However, some have argued that disruption has exposed the fragility of the development program that are reliant on external aid. The former Kenyan president, Uhuru Kenyatta, urged African countries to view the aid freeze as a wake-up call for the continent to prioritize its own development. And I agree. We should not. They shouldn't be just continuously carrying on relying on aid from foreign countries and trying to develop their own. Obviously, it's easy for me to say that sitting here, but he is right in saying that. Nobody's going to continue holding out a hand to you to give to you. It's time for us to use our resources for the right things, he said. It's about how they're going to do that. Most are adamant that the intentions of Trump and Musk, who are head of an unofficial cost-cutting agency to close USAID, is disastrous. Without naming countries or areas, we've had to close life-saving services for children with acute malnutrition and also testing and treatment sites for health facilities, nutrition facilities and wash facilities, said one aid worker. Kids are dying as a direct result of Elon Musk and Donald Trump's actions here. Children. Remember that. He has killed children as a result of his actions. Jeremy Koskowitz, president of Refugee International and a former official at USAID, described Musk's wish to close the agency as posing an existential threat to the humanitarian sector. If this goes forward, it really is an extinction-level event for the global aid sector in the US and for much of the global relief and development sector around the world. Koskowitz added that it would also destabilize budgets for many large aid and the United Nations organizations around the world. It threatens really the collapse not just of what USAID does, but of this huge ecosystem of relief and development organizations that are doing good around the world every day, he said. Research from Gut Matter Institute underlines such warnings, revealing that 11.7 million women and girls will be denied access to contraceptive care over the course of the 90-day aid freeze, which they predict mean 8,340 women and girls would die from complications during pregnancy and childbirth. Elsewhere, concerns over the fate of the humanitarian sector was laid bare in a survey of 342 international development organizations, which concluded that without US funding, more than half were likely to close before May. Half! What is that? Like 100? What are we looking at? 165? 166 potential international development organizations could be closed by May this year. That's insane. That is just out. It's just insane. Like, imagine if Americans understood this. If they understood this, knowing that children are literally dying because of what Elon Musk and Donald Trump are doing, would they have any moral compass on this? Attempts by the US government to soften the impact of its freeze by unveiling a waiver for the projects offering life-saving assistance appears to have done little except prompted further confusion. Is Plumpty Nut a paste used to feed severely malnutrition children? Life-saving. Is a vaccine life-saving? What is a life-saving part of a project? What qualifies goes under the waiver? An aid worker asked. A global aid freeze tracker has been set up to look at the collective impact of the orders, inviting civil society organizations to input data. A global aid freeze tracker is going to be set up as a result of this. Let me just click on this. Let's have a quick look. I'm going to put a link for this in the description for you. I'll put a link for this in the description for you guys in the live chat. And what I'll do is I will add this. To the description of this live stream as well. Documents impacting the USG's foreign aid workers and stoppers. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, that's it there. If anybody wants to bookmark that, I recommend keeping a hold of that for the future. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Americans understand nothing. Some think NATO bases in Europe are paid for and manned by US troops and funds when they are a residential part of total funding and soldiers. Dependency on foreign states to influence internal politics and law is never a good thing. That's true, Mr. E. That the US are going to lose a lot of influence in the world as a result of what they're going to do. Hold your head up, Merrick Garland. You must be so proud of this result. Yeah. Imagine a US with outbreaks of controlled diseases certified as unsafe as their civilians barred from entering Europe, Asia, elsewhere. That is incredibly frightening. Imagine a US with a health secretary that does not believe in vaccines affected by the new pandemic disease and without the cooperation of the WGO as well, says Jal. Politics social Trump's death clock will be spinning up 3 times now. Elon has killed people, but don't give a fig about it, says Aztekia. Yeah. USAid was the USA soft power. Indeed. Yeah, this is where this, unfortunately, like, I hate to say this, guys, I'm going to come to the funny memes in a moment, but I'll just say one last serious point on this. We need, I can see Russia stepping in. Russia will step in and step in. Yes, I know Russia has its own economies and whatnot, but they will want more influence, and they will take advantage of this situation. They will take advantage of the situation. Private companies, billionaires can take advantage of this situation to buy influence as well. As you guys mentioned as well, the EU have an opportunity to take a step in of these situations and help in these ways, and also in doing so buying influence as well. China could also influence as well. They have the money, they have the economy behind them. China can have even more power and influence than ever before as a direct result of what America is doing here. It's a very scary time indeed, as we've mentioned numerous times as well. So guys, before we wrap up, and we have gone nearly 2 hours, I knew this was going to be a long live stream anyway. I have the funny memes for you guys. Just something to have a little bit of fun about, guys. That we do here on the Snowflake Watch. But I think next week we may not have the Snowflake Corner. I may have something else instead, and I might move this live stream to another date or something and start doing an American live stream specifically at this time slot, because I think, given that things that keep happening every week, something new keeps coming up, it's probably worth giving our time to talk about. And I do still want to talk about other global events. So what I might do is I may do either a live stream on Friday or a premiere video covering world news, specifically outside the US and the UK, so that we can at least have discussions about what's going on in other parts of the world. Because I do think that while they're not as I know most people are more interested in what's going on with America and Trump, it is important on this channel that we still highlight things that are happening outside both those countries respectively. So I've got 5 funny memes for you guys. Are you ready to have a bit of a laugh? I'm not sure if you guys are going to get a laugh out of these or not, but let's give it a go anyway. So here are the first one. I should drink some water for this as well while keeping you waiting. Right. and then we'll see the gang behind me. Finished it. You see, he's made the horse, so he's finished it. Literally. No. Yes. Were you smoking weed in your room? No. The family cat in the corner. You cannot eat money. Skill issue. That is such a clever one. Who says you can't eat money? There's your proof right there. I want a dinosaur. That's not possible, honey. Then let me have a boyfriend. I'm getting this T-Rex to her right now, ASAP. The things that dads will do to protect their daughters. The lengths they will go, guys. Frog parking only. All others will be towed. My missus is not a fan of frogs or toads, and I sent that to her. I can assure you that she was not happy when I sent that to her. I know she's not going to be happy with that one. She does not like frogs and toads. Anyway, I hope you guys got a good laugh out of those funny memes, guys. So before I go, let's just quickly check on the gang behind me. What did you guys make of it? And yes, Blaze is said they were very funny. Blaze is a lot happy now because we now have is there in full screen. I'll just show you the orb there as well. Ollie sitting on top of the orb, which he broke again. Blaze are Pokemon. Pingu, the penguin, and representative in the Briggs. Representative of Briggs with on behalf of Antarctica and the Arctic Circle, and Kashami the Cookie Monster, who is hiding behind there as well. See, there's emojis of all those guys if you are members, just for a reminder. So I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who has come along today for this very, very long show. It was a very, very long one, but if you've been here since the start, thank you so much for giving your time. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everyone who has gifted memberships or super chats today. Number 3, Alistair Keir, and anyone else for that matter. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your support, guys. It really does make a massive difference. Keeps me going on this channel as well, so I greatly appreciate it. I will be back tomorrow. I believe there is a Prime Minister's question, so if there is, I will be live streaming it tomorrow at 12. But I also have at 8 o'clock tonight, 8 o'clock tomorrow night, there will be. We're planning supposed to be a review of last year, myself and Lee Korn, but we might not do that. Sorry, I'm trying not to sneeze, even though I'm very close to the end of this. Tried to get to the end of this goddamn live stream without sneezing. Sorry about that, guys. So we might just do. It is supposed to be a funny show. It's going to be a fun show. It's not going to be a serious show. Myself and Lee Korn. I want to stress that tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Myself and Lee Korn doing the Snowflake show. So it may be 2024. It may be 2025. But we're just going to have a fun show. We're just going to do some funny stuff, guys. So if you're interested in that and just having a bit of fun, join us for that. On Thursday night, I will be hosting the Snowflake Watch. So instead of doing it on Wednesday night, that'll be on Thursday night. And because we hit the goal today, I'll be doing a live stream on Friday at 7 o'clock. I will probably be doing the Snowflake's conflict, and I will cover some conflicts and news outside the UK. I may even just do another Snowflake watch, but we'll see, or I'll think about. That's what I'll probably do. I won't be doing any kind of Friday lights or something like that. I'll be doing a serious live stream on Friday, guys. But thank you guys all for coming along. If you're heading over to Politics Social for Geostopes, you can head over there, or you can wait until, obviously, Max is going live at 8:30 tonight. I believe Helena No Justice will be going live tonight as well. I'm pretty confident she will be as well. Cross fingers as well. But there are plenty of other great YouTubers and live streams taking place as well, so do check them out while as well. So thank you guys again all for your comments. Thank you guys for hitting the like button and for sharing and whatnot. And yeah, I will be back tomorrow. But just before I run away, I have one last thing to say. If you haven't already, please hit that like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. And share this across social media so others are notified of this live stream. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. If you want to go one step further and find support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.